It's louder and louder, and we are still at the Superbooth 19, and welcome to a new Synth Anatomy video here. I'm here with UDO and with George. How are you?
Hi, yeah, I'm okay, thanks. A few hours in and already getting a sore throat, but otherwise well, thank you.
And with the German synthesizer designer Axel Hartmann. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you so much. Yeah.
So, you have a new instrument. You were teasing since 1 month a new synth. And what is it? Or first, what is your background? Because it's a new company, UDO.
Yeah. So UDO is a new company, but my background's been in actually making chip modules for sort of DIY, modular and vintage synth chip replacements with the company Hearn Morley. And I did that for years and years and years and years, sort of ones and twos and occasionally for OEMs. And then in 2015, I licensed some of that technology to Modal Electronics, and I worked with them, and we made the 008 synthesizer, which is a big analog VCO 8-voice flexible poly, great instrument. And so then UDO really formed as the genesis. That was the genesis. And so we decided to make our own brand and make our own instruments. And so we formed a little group together and teamed up with some very useful people who helped us make it happen. And so yeah, fresh company with a little bit of history behind it.
And you are a company from UK or?
Yes, we're based in Bristol. So that's on the southwest coast, UK.
And because we see it now, the design. Talking with the designer here. So what was the first call from UDO you got what they should do?
That's interesting because George came to me, we connected through LinkedIn. He asked me if I would be interested in designing a synthesizer for him, and he sent me pictures of that synth that were already like the real thing, working, but they did lack kind of character. I think that was what it was. So we had the chance.
Metal box, basically.
Yeah. So we had the chance to really give this new company a unique look and feel. That's what we wanted. So the user interface was already set beautifully and very logically by George and his team. But we were bringing together that with a kind of form factor and a making that is has its own language.
It looks very vintage, so like you take the synth from the 80s, but you don't release it, but you release it now in 2019. Was that one of the asking for UDO to make it a bit more vintage style?
Yeah, absolutely. Make it vintage, make it rock solid, give it kind of a feel. Well, this is something that you delivered to us, a very nice and great made up kind of a feel book, what you wanted in the synth. And we tried to take that ideas. It was not, it was pictures showing certain, not only instruments, but designed chairs and stuff out of the usual environment, living environment, and what you really like. And we tried to capture this these elements and bring them together into a synthesizer. So we made, you see these screws, the visible screws here to the side. Then you see this step here. So we have like 2 levels, the synthesizer level and the control level. And we wanted the keyboard to like stand out, to talk to you, and you want to touch it. But we had implemented this element to make it safe.
You can still stand it up on its end like that. And it won't damage the keys.
Yeah,
we've got some robust protection.
Yeah. Maybe it goes now a bit far for just a presentation for your new synthesizer, but what is for you now on the UDO vintage? What means vintage design?
Well, it's not vintage. It has vintage elements because what you see and what you find is an instrument that you can use instantly because it has that kind of setup and character that people know from instruments that have a certain history. But besides that, I think it's a story on its own. And the vintage elements that you can find maybe is the way it's made up. And like I said, this is element of the keyboard that is coming to you, something that we stole from Arp. The Arp instruments had that, and I always liked that as a design element. But people were always complaining about the keys getting hurt so easy. So this is why we brought in this very stiff and stable part to save them.
A solid lump of milled metal on the end. So that isn't folded metal. That's actually a solid piece of steel, effectively. So that's really, you know, you could do some damage with that if you dropped it on your foot, put it that way.
Okay, I think because people are watching this video, especially also for seeing the Super 6. So let's talking about the engine or what makes this so different. So you're using a new analog technology, or?
Yeah, so basically the vintage look is like about as far as the outside and the control interface goes. You delve inside and it is basically completely fresh. We have a hybridization of analog, sort of analog voicing technology with filters from SSI, the SSM filters effectively, Dan Park Sound Semiconductor. We have high pass filter, low pass filter. They can track to make a band pass sweepable mode. This is very much a prototype we've got here, so we haven't got everything enabled. But at the core of it is the oscillator section, which uses FPGAs. And what we are calling DDS oscillators, direct digital synthesis, which is the kind of what we think is a technically correct term for what they are, which is a...
So that's why it's called analog hybrid.
Yes. Yeah. So the actual oscillator sound source is digital generated, and that lets us do some amazing things. It lets us go to some places you just could not go with analog oscillators, but the super high precision, the long many-point wavetables, the extremely high sample rates, and the ridiculous parallel processing capability means that we can actually, you know, we can do some pretty fancy things with them. And
because we see it more and more in new synths, this FPGA. What makes it so great to use?
It's very simple. It's an absolute pig to design. It's the worst thing in the world to program with. It takes about 10 times as long to program as a CPU. But it has one key advantage, is that you can design digital circuits as if you were building an analog circuit. Now that's quite important. It's like you're wiring up components. So the end result, because the sort of design process is different, and you know your sample rates are 1,000 times faster, not just 10 times, 100 times, but 1,000 times faster, you basically get rid of all of the digital problems of aliasing, and you can start doing some really fancy stuff in the digital domain. And you hybridize the two, lovely analog filters, lovely oscillators together, and a great UI and a great sort of case. And I think, in my opinion, you got a great instrument. I love it.
We have two oscillators, as I see.
Two main oscillators, but the LFO can become oscillator 3. But also, the main oscillator, DDS1, is actually 7 oscillators, which are dynamically detuned and dephased to make a really, really large, what we describe as a super oscillator, hence the Super 6. And we use one oscillator for left. Well, basically, you got a whole synthesizer for each ear. So you've got left and right oscillators, left and right filters, left and right envelopes, left and right LFOs, all the way through, left and right VCAs, the whole thing from the start to the finish. And a sort of dynamic detuning and phasing control to really fill the synth out and to sort of break away that kind of mono positioning which relies on sort of stereo effects at the end, which is perhaps historically how we've done things. And
I see the oscillators. Is there sync? Is it sync?
Yeah, it does have
can it
sync.
do FM?
Oh yeah, it does. It does lovely FM and it does lovely sync. To be perfectly honest, our hard sync in this prototype is a little bit dirty. So it's not bad, it's just dirty.
Dirty is not bad.
Well, there's different kinds of dirty. I'm going to take it back and I'm going to get that hard sync absolutely spot on. But yeah, it has got hard sync and it has got cross mod. Both of them sound, you know, really good. I think because sort of audio rate FM never sounded good until you sampled at tens of megahertz, you know, to my mind. And I think now we've finally got to the point in digital where you can actually do great sounding audio rate cross modulation of stuff and it sound good, not limited.
we described already.
Yeah.
Then the two envelopes.
Yeah. So we've got some really, really nice, easy to control envelopes here. I love the way you can just grip all your hands on them and move the whole lot at one time to control the type of sound. Envelope 1 here can be inverted. It can also be looped, and you can loop it at audio rates, so you can get it tuned with these two, and then you can get it to track the keyboard. So then it becomes a key tracking FM source as well. So that's quite interesting. Or you could just have it normal key tracking, so it gets faster at the top, slower at the bottom. Envelope 1 can be mapped to a number of different locations through direct front panel buttons and through the modulation matrix. And also both envelopes, for example, can map to the filter. You can set the hold, so the envelope 1 triggers almost after envelope 2, which allows you to do complex envelope modulations of the filter. And really there are some small touches around the synthesizer, which when you play around with this thing, you'll sort of hopefully get to see are actually allow you to do quite powerful things. So for example, you've got a very basic envelope for the VCA, which is either gate or gate plus a release curve, which means you've now freed up your VCA envelope for other processing effectively, which means you can use those two for other parts of the instrument.
What I see, obviously, your design, no menu diving or everything hands-on.
This synthesizer is about the philosophy that just because you can does not mean you should, and that we wanted to make everything immediate, everything hands-on, and everything is right there and it's right in front of you. As soon as something takes too long or you're going, oh, what's it doing? It's doing this thing. How do I stop it doing that? Your flow's lost. And this is all about, right, playing and programming are not two things, they're one activity.
For me, it's funny, especially here on Superbooth. On the left side, you have then the Waldorf Quantum, which is the menu beast. And here you have the zero menu synth at all.
They're made in the same factory next to each other. It's quite interesting. Waldorf Quantum is a fantastic instrument. They're different horses for courses. This is smaller, lighter, cheaper, rawer, more pared back, more immediate. You know, the Waldorf Quantum there is accomplished and large and extremely flexible. But you know, this knows what it is. It's a synth. I want you to pick this thing up, take it to a gig, chuck it in the back of your car, bang it on a garage door, and it'd be fine. I want the scratches of the paint and the damage and everything to be part of the DNA of the instrument. It's to take with, it's to use, to play, to have fun.
And then on the left side, I see you have an LFO and some DDS modulators.
Yes, absolutely. So here, if you look at the LFO, again, on the start, it's very, very ordinary until you start looking at it and say, okay, well, you can use it as an envelope generator by putting it into that mode. Obviously, you can reset on key if you want. But then here, you can switch it into high frequency mode. And when you're in high frequency mode, it can be routed through your oscillator path to become oscillator 3, main oscillator 3. And then it can be also used, of course, because it's an LFO, you can directly map it. It's an FM source. And then you can put it to high frequency tracking, which means it tracks the keyboard. And so it becomes really a full third oscillator or FM source, which is quite fun, I think. And of course can be synced to the tempo MIDI clock.
Then we have, I see an arpeggiator sequencer.
Yes.
Is it a combination, or is it really an arpeggiator and a sequencer? Or
it's an arpeggiator and a sequencer, but not all at one time. So you're either in arpeggiator modes or you're in sequencer mode. The sequencer mode isn't enabled at the moment, but it's a super fast sequencer. Think back to something like a TB303 with step, slide, accent, rest, and length. So you can very, very quickly record your steps, and then you'll see them on here going through. You can record your slides, turn your slides on and off going through. You can record your accents, and you can record the rests, and you can set the overall sequence length. So the idea is tap something in really quickly, play around with it really quickly, get a riff going, and then start jamming with it. You know, it's not a 8-track multi-pattern linked workstation. There's better things to use a sequencer, but this is, you want to make a great riff, you want to make a great little hook, boom, tap something in, get it running in the background.
Also modulation metrics, or
yes.
because it's not something digital, I see, or it's very physical.
Yeah, absolutely. So we sort of deliberately said to ourselves in the design, okay, well, how do we allow flexibility and power without compromising immediacy? So the whole design philosophy is we want this to be super flexible and powerful. We can't have menus. We can't have complication. Everything's got to be seen. So what you do, I'm going to be perfectly honest, we haven't enabled it. This is very much a prototype, just a preview here. But when it is corrected, you'll find that you have your sources here on the left. So you'll be able to press this to assign, choose a number of sources. You can access them simultaneously. And then choose your destinations that they map to. You can map simultaneously. And then the LEDs, when you turn this control left and right, will move up and down from the middle, showing positive and negative modulation. And then that's the first level. So you can always see what you've mapped by pressing that button. Where am I? Okay, I'm here. I can see that and that are mapped to this and this. And then the tapping that will show you the amount. Then level 2, maybe you want to map velocity independently to cross-mod depth. So you just hold them both down and turn it. Then you can hold that down to see where you've mapped it to, or you can hold down that down to see where you've mapped it from. So that's quite good, but it's one level deeper, maybe a little bit more difficult to find out where you've mapped things. Level 3 is you basically hold down the source button and move whatever you like. But then you can do whatever you like, but you've got no way of knowing what you've done. So then you just, if you want to panic, you just press Shift Clear and you've cleared the deck and you're back to the start again.
Then I think the single ends also in a delay chorus, I see.
Oh yeah. So you have very, very straightforward chorus, but this is a lush chorus made in the FPGA, full 192 kilohertz, 24-bit.
The design remembers me a bit of the Roland 186.
There is definitely some Roland DNA in this bit here, and indeed the sort of combination of buttons and sliders that we've gone for. You know, the effects are, I think, not actually really needed in a synth like this, but people have got very, very used to having them. It's nice to have a tempo sync delay, and just to be able to hit a bit of chorus on, just to fill the sound out, sometimes is really nice. So we put that in there. We didn't want to give you too many deep controls. It really is one or two, and when you press them both together, you get something a little bit special. So we'll leave that one for the first people who get the synthesizer are going to have a little bit of a treat there, because something nice happens.
Because we have digital oscillators and some very complex sounds, presets are available. You can save presets? Or?
So we want to focus this synth on manual playing. So we want you to build your connection with the instrument. So we really kind of want to keep everything on the deck. So you hit this button here at any point in time, makes every control pick up where it is and nothing's hidden. But we also have presets. We have classic banks presets. So we have 8 banks of 8 presets, basic on the instrument. However, it also has a disk drive interface. So all of your presets just are files on a disk. So that if you just plug a laptop or a phone or an iPad into the back, it pops up a disk drive that just says Super 6, and on there are all your patches. So you want to take one bunch off, send them to your mate on email, or stick another one in, they're all there. It's so easy. And waveforms as well you can do in the same way.
Does it send it out MIDI CC? or is it?
Sends out and receives MIDI CC, and very simply on the panel you can choose whether you listen to and send the CC.
So an editor, we can expect also an editor or something?
Yes. Yeah, we haven't got immediate plans to release an editor with the synth straight away, but because it all sends standard MIDI CCs, all controls, you know, there are a number of different ways you can control this synthesizer already without custom software from us in that regard.
And finally, on the back side, what
do you want to
connection?
have a look at it? Whoops,
Yeah.
Should we stand up and show you the back? I think the back is actually a really pretty feature of the synth with this ridge. So we have MIDI on DIN, USB, mains power in, proper mains power in. We have audio left and right and headphones. We have audio input with audio to gate trigger. Now that goes through all 12 analog filters. And then we have expression and hold and expression pedals. And the pedal can be mapped through the modulation matrix, but it also is mapped directly through this simple mod section on the left as well. Put it back down.
Well, that was now a lot of information for the guys,
Yeah,
I think.
I'm sorry, I sort of splurged everything out, but I wanted to tell you a few of the features.
When we can expect it? Or do you have already some price ideas or price?
Autumn this year, and we're we have to synchronize all our prices with all the different countries, but we're looking at a UK street price just a little bit north of £2,000.
Okay.
Including taxes.
Okay. And so I'm looking forward to see it in real or when it's finished.
Yeah.
Because I think there will be many guys who enjoy a real hands-on synth with no menu diving and.
I hope so. That's what I enjoy. This, you know, I know it's like our baby.
It looks.
It's the funnest synth I've ever played.
It looks very oldish, but it's brand new technology instead.
That goes as far as the initial look. When you actually go even a little bit further and see what's on the panel, and then you delve inside, then it starts getting quite new. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, George.
No, thank you very much. Really nice to meet you. Thank you.
Bye.